So I'm going to do some quality control and maintenance on one of our lab machines. This is our VTHT, which is our blood chemistry machine. So the first step is to take our controls out, and they're in the freezer. So there's 2 bottles. So we're going to take them out, and they need to defrost for an hour and a half. So I'll set them out here to thaw out, and we'll come back then to continue with our maintenance. Okay, so now that our controls are thawed out, we're going to mix the powder with 3 cc's of the liquid control, which is our diluent. So we'll just drop 3 cc's. And mix it with our powder. Put the top back on, invert it and mix it. And once it's done mixing, it'll have to sit for 30 minutes before we can continue. Okay, now that our mixed control solution has been sitting out for 30 minutes, we're gonna continue with our quality control. So we have some slides in the freezer, and there's 6 of them. So we need these first 6. So to proceed with the quality control, we're going to come over to our lab machine, and we're going to select new sample, and then controls is number 6, and then we just need to match our lot number with the lot number on our bottle, which is K4433. It's the second one. So that's going to load, and we're going to run it just like we were running a blood chemistry test. So I'll open up each barcode and insert it into the machine upside down. Then once I've got all 6 loaded, I'll let the machine read it, and we're going to use the solution as our sample. Okay, so now we're going to remove the probe and equip it with a new tip. Place it in here. Alright, and now instead of having a real serum sample, we're going to be using this solution as our serum. So we're going to lower the tip directly into the serum, press down, let it suck up as much of the solution that it needs. Okay. Now we'll wipe the probe, and when it beeps at us again, put it in the machine. Okay. Now it's going to run the sample, make sure all the controls are in the correct range. So we'll let that run, and then when we come back, it'll print out, and we can check to make sure everything's normal. Okay, so our machine finished processing, so it's showing our results on the screen for our 6 chemistries. So it shows that the calcium is on the lower end, but it's not out of range. So the out of range would be anything lower than 7.9, so everything's normal. If it wasn't normal, then we would come over to our quality control book and follow the procedure. So if there's a test out of range, you want to check the expiration date and discard it if it's expired. If everything's good with the expiration, then you would repeat the test with the same control solution, and then do another test that's in the same optic range. And if those come out normal, then you can continue with the patient analysis. If they come out of range, then you're going to need to reconstitute a new control and repeat the same tests. And then if one is in range and one is out of range, then you're going to want to start with a whole new box of slides. And if it continues to be out of range, then you'll have to call IDEX, and if it's in range, then you can continue with the patient analysis. So since everything was normal, we can continue to use our blood chemistry machine as we have been for our patient analysis. Okay, we're going to perform a CPO, canine pancreatitis test. So we got to spin down our sample. We collected blood into the yellow top tubes, and we're going to spin them down to get serum. Make sure serum spun down, we are going to do our snap test. So it's been sitting out for a few minutes to get it to room temperature. So we have our snap test and a pipette. So we're going to open the serum, and you want to add 3 drops of the serum to the tube to add into the conjugate. 1, 2, 3. And then you want 4 drops of conjugate. 1, 2, 3, 4. You'll close this. You're going to invert it to mix it. And then in your snap test, you want to add the mixture into this first circle. You're going to watch it move across the snap test, and as it enters into the smaller circle, that's when you're going to snap the test. Takes a little while for it to get there. Okay, so there's a little bit of color seeping in through into that second circle. So we'll snap it. We'll start our timer. And it's going to go for 10 minutes, and we'll come back and check what the results are. 3. Okay, so it's been 10 minutes. So our snap test shows that it's negative. So the dot on the left is the reference dot, and the dot on the right is what we're comparing it against. And since it's lighter than the left dot, it means that the test is negative. So the fecal flotation. So I have my fecal sample, and I'm going to mix 2 grams, which is about 2 scoops of this, into my fecal cup. And then we're going to mix 30 ml of the fecal flotation medium, which is to the top of this solution cup. And then we're going to mix it. And then we're going to place a gauze over top of it, and we're going to strain it into this tube, and we're going to strain until a meniscus forms. Okay, now that we have a meniscus, we're going to place the cover slip over top of it. And we're going to allow this to sit for 10 to 15 minutes, so I've set my timer, and then we'll come back to it. It's been 10 minutes. We're going to carefully remove our cover slip off of our fecal float and place it directly on a slide. And we're going to take it over to the microscope to examine for some parasite eggs. So to examine for parasite eggs, we're going to keep it on the 10 power. We'll adjust it until we can see our sample. Okay. Now I'm just going to begin scanning through, looking for some parasite eggs. We're looking for roundworm eggs. You can see whipworms, giardia, coccidia, and even sometimes tapeworms. And And now I'm going to switch over to the 40 objective just to scan for some smaller parasite eggs, make sure there's nothing there. Okay, and I haven't seen any parasites, so we'll say that the fecal is negative, no eggs or parasites seen at this time. Now I'm going to perform a fecal flotation with centrifugation. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to mix 2 grams of fecal in a fecal cup. And we're going to put 30 mLs of fecal flotation solution, which is to the top of this vial. And then we're going to mix it. Now we're going to strain the fecal solution into a centrifuge tube, and I'm going to fill it to the 12 ml mark, which is about right here, to leave a small space at the top while it's centrifuging. Okay, now that it's filled up to the 12 ml mark, we're going to put it into the centrifuge, and I pre-filled a balancer tube with the fecal solution as well, so it's the same weight. So we're going to come over here, place it in the centrifuge, and we're going to centrifuge it for 5 minutes. And we'll come back to it in 5 minutes. Now that our fecal flotation has been finished centrifuging, we're going to take our sample out. You can see the sediment at the bottom, and we're going to fill it the rest of the way with flotation solution to form a meniscus. Okay, and now we're going to place a cover slip on this one and allow it to sit for 10 minutes as well. Okay, and we'll start our timer and we'll come back to examine it after 10 minutes. Now I'm going to perform a direct smear. So you need a slide. We're going to add a couple drops of the fecal flotation solution onto the slide directly. And then we're going to take our little wooden applicator and we're going to get some fecal. And then we're going to mix it together on the slide until it's homogeneous. And we can remove any big chunks after mixing. And I'm going to remove some of the chunks. And then we're going to smear it over to make a thin film on the slide. And this will pick up any other larger chunks as well. Okay, and now we're going to place a cover slip over it, and then we're going to go examine it on the microscope. So again, we're going to start with the 10 objective. To look for parasite eggs like hookworms, whipworms. You can see Giardia on here, Coccidia. So I'm going to scan through and see if I can see any eggs. Since I'm not seeing any parasite eggs, I'm going to switch over to the 40 objective just to make sure there's no smaller eggs that might be hiding in there. And I'm still not seeing any parasites, so I'm going to say this fecal is negative with no eggs or parasites seen. I'm going to do a fecal sedimentation. So we're going to start off the same way that we have been. So we're going to mix 2 grams of fecal in our fecal cup. And pour 30 mLs of our fecal flotation medium up to the top of our little beaker. And then we're going to mix it. Okay, and now we're going to put the gauze over top of it, and we're going to strain it into our centrifuge tube up to the 12 ml mark and leave a space again since we're going to be centrifuging this sample. Okay, so that's up to the 12 ml, and we're going to come put it in the centrifuge. And I'm still using the balancer that I had before, so it has just the flotation solution in there up to the 12 ml to balance it out. Place this in here, and then we're going to centrifuge it for 5 minutes and then come back to it. So we'll come back in 5 minutes. Now that our fecal solution is done centrifuging for our sediment, you can see the sediment at the bottom. So now we're going to pipe it off the top of the solution so that we don't disturb any of the fecal sediment at the bottom. Okay, that's the last of it, and now we just have the sediment undisturbed at the bottom. I'm going to try to get some of the fecal sediment top layer to put on our microscope slide. Okay, and then we're going to place a cover slip over this, and then we're going to examine it under the microscope for some parasite eggs. And the fecal sedimentation procedure is used to find parasite eggs that are heavier in weight, like fluke ova, so we'll be looking for those while we're observing it under the microscope. And we'll start with the 10 objective again. You might be able to see some other parasite eggs, but usually this is where you find the heavier ova that have come to the top. I'm not seeing any parasite eggs. We'll switch the 40 objective just to be sure. Okay. I don't see anything, so I'll say the fecal is negative with no eggs or parasites seen at this time. Today I'm going to be performing some in-house chemistries. So we drew some blood and put it in the small microtubes, and this is to retrieve some plasma, so we're going to spin it down. We're going to make sure our settings are right, so for blood it's 12 RPM for 3 minutes. So we'll start spinning this down, and when it's done we'll have the plasma to do our in-house chemistries. So now that our blood is spun down, we have some plasma to do our tests, so we'll go to our vet lab. So this is our vet test machine where we do our chemistries. We've already ordered our blood work, so we need to start the machines to get it going. Select our patient. We'll also be running some blood cell counts and some electrolytes at the same time. So while those ones start, we'll come over to our chemistries. So I got all the supplies I needed, which is the sample cup. So I'm going to remove the plasma from each of the tubes using a pipette. Set those aside. Alright, and then we're going to make sure that it's our patient on our vet test machine, which is Stella. We'll hit continue. We're not going to do any slide. And then we're going to get out our slides. So we're going to be doing a 12 chem today, so it's a general health profile, and there'll be 12 slides to insert into the machine. So our machine basically tells us what to do, so we're going to open each of these packages, insert the slide with the barcode facing up, like that, and then we'll insert our sample. Each of these slides represents a different chemistry that we're testing. And the last one is always the purple one. So after we've inserted those, the analyzer is going to read the barcodes. So wait for it to read that, and then we'll be able to proceed with putting our sample in. Okay, now that our machine is finished reading our barcodes, we're going to equip our probe. We'll remove the probe from the machine, insert the tip on, insert it back into the machine, and we'll press E. So it's just going to initialize it, get it ready. Now we're going to take our sample, we're going to lower the tip of into the sample, we'll hold it down, the plasma is going to suck up into the tip of it, and when it's ready, it'll beep at us to tell us to lift it from the sample. So we'll lift it, wipe it with a Chemtech wipe, and then we'll place it back in. Now the machine's going to put the sample on all the slides, and it's going to run it, and when it finishes, it'll print out our results. Okay, now that our blood chemistries are finished running, it printed out our blood work. And after looking at it, it looks like the ALT was too high to read, which is related to the liver. It's a liver value, and that can be related to vomiting, which Stella was presenting with. I'm going to perform an ear cytology on my patient, Cody. So you want to get a sample from each ear and place your sterile cotton swab down into the lower ear. Make sure you get a sufficient sample on your ear swab. And then we're going to break the left one so that I know it's the left. Switch to the right side and do the same thing. Get down into that lower ear canal and get a sufficient sample. Okay, and then we will go put it on the slide and steam it. Now we're going to put it on a slide, so we're going to take our left one and put it on the left side of the slide. You want to make sure that you roll it on instead of rubbing it because it can cause cell damage. So we'll roll it across the entire left side of our slide. And we'll do the same on the right. And then we're going to pass it through a flame really quick to heat fix it and dissolve any wax chunks that might be on our slide. You want to avoid excessive heat because that can also cause cell damage. And then we use the dip quick, so we're going to put it in all 3 stains for at least 25 seconds. our second stain. And the first one is just to help fix it to the slide. And then our second and third does different stainings of different cells. And we're going to come over to the sink and rinse it.
Yeah.
We're rinsing it on the opposite side that the sample is on. And we'll dry it. I'll wipe the back side and then we'll blot it dry with our paper. And then we're going to take it over to the microscope to examine it. So for examining ear cytologies, and we're gonna start with the 4 objective, zoom it in, and then we'll move on to the next one. We're gonna move on to the 10 objective. This is our 40. Okay, and then for our last objective, it's the 100 objective. We're gonna place a dot of immersion oil on the microscope and then view it, and we're gonna begin scanning to look for any yeast or bacteria, cocci rods, see if the patient has an ear infection. You want to scan at least 10 fields. And I'm not seeing anything in the left ear so far, so that's good. So we're gonna switch over to the right side. And we'll zoom back in, make sure we can see the cells on this side. Place a dot of immersion oil again. I don't see anything, so I'm going to say the dog does not have an ear infection, so that's great. Okay, so we had a small newborn puppy come in. The owner thought that he had some bleeding from his umbilical cord, and when we got here we found out he had an open hernia, so he had to get put down. So we're going to do a necropsy on him to find out if there's anything else going on. So before starting a necropsy, it's important to have on a gown, cap, mask, and gloves for protection. So Dr. Donnie here is going to do an external exam on the puppy, see if she finds anything else other than the open hernia, and then we're going to move to the inside to do some internal organ examination and take some biopsies of anything that looks abnormal, and if nothing's abnormal, we'll take some biopsies of the liver and the kidney, just in case, because the owner does breed the puppies and make sure there's nothing else wrong.
Okay, so we're going to start. This is a little French bulldog. We are going to look in the mouth to make sure there's no cleft palate. That actually looks pretty good. There's nothing else in the mouth. I grab the little tongue. So there's nothing in the throat, and that looks very good. We are also going to palpate the fontanelles, and there is a little open fontanelle, but it's something I would expect at this age. So I would say that's pretty normal. The eyes are obviously closed because this is a newborn puppy. Same thing with the ears, so that's normal. Everything else looks good. The little toes, the little paws, they're all intact. Same thing back here, and it's a little female. This is dried up intestines from the hernia. So we will go ahead and move that to the side, and we're gonna open where the opening of the hernia is and open up the abdomen and take a look. So you can hold the little intestines up for me, that'd be great, thank you. So we see that little opening, so we're just gonna open that down. And then we'll move that down, open the other way. Okay. Ooh. All right, let's take a look in here so we can figure out what's what. Looks like he had ruptured intestines. The content here is all free in the abdomen. It goes all the way up here. So this puppy wouldn't have made it no matter what we would have done. This is actually poop in the colon. I'll get that out. Okay. So that's his bladder right here. It's empty. So that looks pretty normal. The rest of his intestines and all the content that's ruptured all the way up here. So we can take a little piece of this intestine and just send it out. Make sure there's no abnormalities there. See, that's what was all tied up in there. Yeah. Okay. See, it's not even attached to anything else.
So I have a small jar of formalin so that we can put the biopsy sample in it.
Let me put this little piece in there too.
And then I'm just going to label that this is the intestines for sending out.
Alright, we'll keep going. See what else we find. The liver should be up here. There's also an opening between the abdomen and the thorax. So he also had a diaphragmatic hernia. Poor thing.
Yeah.
Alright, let's see what else we have. That is his liver. I'll take a little piece of that and send that in. Whoosh. There you go. Okay.
And then I'll label this liver so that it doesn't get confused with our other samples.
to the liver. Yep. And I think the stomach was also part of this rupture of the intestines. So he had a congenital malformation, and that's why he died.
Well, that concludes our necropsy. We'll send out these 2 specimens to check for any other abnormalities other than the ones that Dr. Valiant noted. Okay, so if you have a rabies suspect come in, the only people that are going to be able to handle the rabies suspect and specimen collection are going to be people that have had the rabies pre-exposure vaccine, because exposure to the rabies virus is going to be very high when trying to collect specimens. The people that are collecting specimens need to be wearing a cap, gown, mask, and gloves for protection of any bodily fluids getting into their body. And the specimen that needs to be submitted is the head. So once the head is collected, it's going to be placed in a large garbage bag with some absorbent material and tightly sealed so that no bodily fluids can leak out of it. And you want to make sure that the brainstem is in stock when collecting the head. Then the public health department will come and pick it up, and they will place it in usually a tightly sealed styrofoam box, and then that'll get placed in a rigid shipping container with some ice packs to keep it cool. It's important to only refrigerate it and not freeze it, because that makes the collecting process harder and messes up some of the specimens. And the remainder of the body will get incinerated unless for some reason the family would like the body back, and then in that case we are able to keep the body for 10 days until the results have come back, and if the rabies suspect is negative, then we can give that body back to the family, but if not, it will be incinerated. Okay, I'm going to take vaginal cytology from Erica here. She hasn't been spayed yet, so we're going to want to wash and rinse it first. So I have some chlorhexidine solution. I'm going to put on it. I'm going to wash the area. And then we'll rinse it with some saline. And just dab it dry with some gauze. And then for the cytology, we're going to take a sterile cotton swab. I'm going to dip it in some saline so it's moistened. Pull the vulva down. You want to insert almost vertically and then horizontally and roll gently to get your sample. And then we'll have our sample, and once we get it cleaned up, then we'll roll it onto a slide and look at it under the microscope to determine what stage of estrus she's in. Okay, so now that we have our swab from our vaginal cytology, it's going to be rolled onto the slide. So you want to make sure that you roll it and you don't rub it because it can cause cell damage. So we'll rub it till we have a nice thin layer. Okay, and we'll just air dry it for a second. And we're going to stain it just like we would in ear cytology. So it's going to go in all 3 stains, and it stays in there for about 25 seconds each. Okay. Tramadol. Can you see if you can get one on cabin if you can walk outside and see show? It may not be successful, but I feel like we should try one more time. Okay, and now that it's been stained, I'm going to take it over to the sink and rinse it. And I'm going to rinse it on the side that the smear wasn't done on, so that I don't rinse off any of the material. dry the back end of it with a paper towel, and then blot the rest of it dry with our paper. Okay, and now it's ready to take over to the microscope. Okay, so we're going to start off on our 4 objective and work our way up as we start to zoom in and get a clear picture. Okay, now moving to my 10 objective. And then on 40. And then for our last objective, which is our 100, we're going to add immersion oil. And then we're going to look around the slide and see what kind of cells we're seeing to determine what stage of estrus that the dog is in. Okay, so I'm seeing a lot of neutrophils.
You guys do the outro?
No erythrocytes. And a lot of debris. And all the epithelial cells that I'm seeing right now are non-cornified and squamous. So based on everything I'm seeing under the microscope, I would determine that the puppy was in met estrus. So the puppy that I did the vaginal cytology on was in met estrus, but there are actually 4 stages of estrus. So the first one is anestrus. That one lasts for about 4.5 months. And under the microscope, you will see non-cornified squamous epithelial cells, whether they're intermediate, parabasal, or basal. There'll be some neutrophils and absolutely no erythrocytes. At this time, the dog is not attracting any males, there's no vulval swelling or anything like that. The second stage is proestrus. That is when there is a swollen vulva and there is some reddish discharge. This can last from 4 to 13 days, 9 on average. She's attracting but not accepting any males. And there's an early and late proestrus, and under the microscope in early proestrus you'll see a high number of erythrocytes, basal and parabasal epithelial cells, and then as it progresses the erythrocytes will gradually decrease and the epithelial cells will show signs of cornification. And then in late proestrus all the epithelial cells are intermediate with pycnotic nuclei and maybe a small number of neutrophils. After that comes estrus. That's when the vulva is swollen and there's some possible pink to straw color discharge, and this is when she's attracting and accepting males. This also lasts for 4 to 13 days with 9 on average, and microscopically it's going to be all squamous epithelial cells that are cornified and anuclear. There's no neutrophils at all, and there might be a small number of erythrocytes. And then the last stage is metestrus, which is what I found the puppy I did on. So she's no longer attracting males, the swelling and discharge has decreased, and when I was examining her and doing her cytology, she wasn't swollen and there was no discharge. And that's when I saw the non-cornified squamous epithelial cells, a lot of cytologic debris, and neutrophils and no erythrocytes, and that stage can last 2 to 3 months. Okay, I'm going to be doing a skin scraping today on our patient Russet. He's been having some thinning hair and spots of baldness, so we're going to do a deep scrape on him to check for Sarcoptes nites or Demodex. So you need some clippers with a 40 blade, a number 10 scalpel, some mineral oil, and a slide. So first I'm going to prepare my slide and put a drop of mineral oil in the middle. so that it's ready. And then I'm going to shave just a small area to do my scrape. And shaving before doing the scraping just removes all the excess hair and other debris that you can pick up when trying to do a scrape. Now I'll open my blade. And you want to hold your blade between your thumb and your forefinger. And I'm going to place it into the mineral oil to get it prepared for the scraping. So for a deep scrape, you're going to hold the blade perpendicular because you don't want to accidentally lance the dog at all. And then you're going to scrape until you see a small amount of blood come through. Okay, and it used a little bit of blood. So then on the front facing part of the blade, we're going to place that into the mineral oil to get anything that we scraped off of the dog on there. There you go. And then we'll take it over to the microscope to examine. Okay, now that I have my skin scraped, I'm going to look at it under the microscope. So I'm going to place a cover slip over it. And then place it on the microscope, and we're going to look at it under the number 4 objective. And then we'll scan through to see if we can see any mites.
I mean, like, I remembered it, but I forgot that it was back here. And Sam brought another thing of it up front to restock. And so my brain's see you tomorrow.
We're looking for Demodex and Sarcoptes since we did a deep scrape. Sometimes you can see the mites moving around or they'll be sedentary.
Patient waiting.
Jill, so the tapes.
And I'm not seeing any, so I don't think that they have any mites.
Is the impressions near the